Yet, unfortunately, today, there are people who offer themselves to be leaders whose actions have undercut this fundamental American principle. Here in Texas, former Governor Rick Perry signed a law that a federal court said was actually written with the purpose of discriminating against minority voters. He applauded when the Voting Rights Act was gutted and said the law's protections were outdated and unnecessary. But Governor Perry is hardly alone in his crusade against voting rights. In Wisconsin, Governor Scott Walker cut back early voting and signed legislation that would make it harder for college students to vote. In New Jersey, Governor Chris Christie vetoed legislation to extend early voting. And in Florida, when Jeb Bush was governor, state authorities conducted a deeply flawed purge of voters before the presidential election in 2000. Thankfully, in 2004, a plan to purge even more voters was headed off. So, today, Republicans are systematically and deliberately trying to stop millions of American citizens from voting. What part of democracy are they afraid of? I believe every citizen has the right to vote, and I believe we should do everything we can to make it easier for every citizen to vote.
Every citizen and non-citizen, I mean, okay. Every citizen and non-citizen to vote. I mean, did you catch that? What part of democracy are you afraid of? Really, Ms. Clinton, what part of republic are you afraid of? Nobody's stopping anybody from voting, just like we're not stopping them from buying cigarettes or riding on airplanes or operating motor vehicles or buying liquor. Come on, you got to use an ID to get all that stuff. And you ought to have an ID to vote. Can you imagine what this country is going to look like if this woman and her grifting husband get into office? Number one, Bill Clinton will be the first lady of the United States of America. Hey, but we will have made history, right? It's no wonder that this woman wants you to believe that somehow the United States of America is a democracy. It is not. It never has been. It's always been a republic. You want a democracy? Jack, you want a democracy? If you want a democracy, look no further than, I don't know, Ferguson, Missouri. How about Baltimore, Maryland? Some parts of New York City. This is what happens when a mob takes over and mob rule ensues. But this divisive rhetoric that divides us around race, gender, and class, this is the tool of the professional, experienced politician. Anywho, according to the National Conference of State Legislators, a total of 34 states have passed laws requiring voters to show some form of identification at the polls. The remaining 18 states use other methods to verify the identity of voters. So all 50 states have some mechanism to determine who's voting in these polls, although about 16 of them don't require any type of identification. So do you want voting to be open to just anyone? How about illegals? On Friday, May 29, 2015, in a Rasmussen report, are voters ready to let illegal immigrants vote? And believe it or not, a sizable number, including most Democrats, are. The latest Rasmussen report, National Telephone Survey, finds that 1 out of 3 likely U.S. voters now believes that illegal immigrants should be allowed to vote if they can prove they live in this country and pay taxes. Who the hell cares if they live here and pay taxes? If they're not a citizen, they shouldn't vote in our elections. Fully 60% disagree, while 5% are undecided. Who are those 5%? Listen, the left and their perverse deception is gaining ground. How could a third of likely voters believe non-citizens should be allowed to vote? I mean, are you scared yet? Well, then there's this boob called Dog the Bounty Hunter. You know who Dog the Bounty Hunter is? I'm not going to watch Dog ever again. I just can't. Look, the guy must have been hit on the head. Something happened to him. He's just too dumbed down to get it. He doesn't even know where to look to get it. Take a listen to Dog on Fox's Outnumbered. This was not too terribly long ago. Jack, play clip number 5. This is Dog the Bounty Hunter.
I like him. He came out swinging. That's fine. His wife is beautiful.
Yeah.
But I don't think he could beat the dynamic duo.
Who's the dynamic duo?
The Clintons.
Oh, no.
Does that make you
Why
sad?
not?
I just don't think I want someone in there with experience. We're at war. These guys are hiring, ISIS is hiring.
What is it
kids
about
at
her
school.
track record, though? I mean, I think a lot of people are looking back at her track record at the State Department and saying that that's going to be an obstacle for her becoming president.
I don't know. She's, I heard her once say, if they keep doing this, we're going to make it a parking lot. I think that women don't throw sand at each other like men do. I think that a woman's decision, I'm a Republican, but I have faith in the dynamic duo.
Dog, you're a dummy. You're a canine. We need someone with experience. Hillary Clinton has no military experience. But if you notice the first part of the clip, he's talking about Marco Rubio. Marco doesn't have a lot of experience either, especially military. He does have government experience, but that's about it. Neither Hillary Clinton or Marco Rubio have any level of military experience. So I don't know, and certainly Barack Obama doesn't have any military experience, hence the rise of ISIS. So I just thought I'd bring you Dog's opinion, a Republican who would vote for a globalist, a communist, and a woman who has the thinnest resume of accomplishments of anybody in the current field running for office. Now, do you want to know the truth about Hillary Clinton? Then you need to mark your calendar for the September 11, 2015 Benghazi tribute brought to you by the First Coast Tea Party, and it's going to be held right here in the Salem Center. You can go to their website and under the events tab, check out the Benghazi tribute. That's the First Coast Tea Party Community.org, but FCTP instead of spelling out First Coast Tea Party, FCTP Community.org. Check out the events tab. It's September 11th. From 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Starting at 6 o'clock, there's a meet and greet where you can meet folks, like-minded people. If you want to hear the real story from Admiral Charles Kubik, United States Navy retired, Admiral Ace Lyons, and intelligence expert Claire Lopez, as only the Citizens Commission on Benghazi can tell it, then you need to mark your calendar. This event is open to all political persuasions, Jack. You can come. You'll hear from members of the military and intel community on how the U.S. switched sides in the war on terror and then tried, with candidate Hillary Clinton's help and masterful deception, to cover it up. And listen, I'm telling you, this Citizens Commission on Benghazi is damning to the current administration and a possible Hillary Clinton administration. And whatever we do, let's keep Bill Clinton from becoming the first lady in 2016. I think we can all agree to that. Join the First Coast Tea Party for the Benghazi tribute, September 11th, 2015, right here at the Salem Center. So I want to hear from someone. I want you to hear from someone who number one, I really like. I've known this individual, but I believe he needs to hone his message and expose the forces at work keeping Americans from freedom and prosperity. He's got a great story of immigration assimilation and a meteoric rise through government. Our own Senator Marco Rubio. And he was on Outnumbered, just like Dog the Bounty Hunter, on Fox News. And I want you to listen to this exchange with Kirsten Powers with Marco Rubio. But I want you to pay particular attention to what he suggests as a solution. And, of course, she starts out questioning Marco about Hillary's age. Take a listen. Play clip 2.
I just want to go back to what you were talking about before about the generational issue and Hillary Clinton. I mean, do you think she's too old to be president?
I don't think it has anything to do with a person's age. I think it has to do with the age of their ideas. Do you have answers that are relative to today? So we have all these people out there today struggling to get ahead. The answer cannot be, we're going to raise the minimum wage by a couple bucks. That $10.10 doesn't solve the problem for someone. We need to figure out how can we help people that are making $9 an hour to make $30 an hour. And the only way that's going to happen is if you have an economy that produces that $30 an hour job and that person has the skills that that job requires. And the answer to both of those questions today is no. We need to have a tax code. We need to have a regulatory framework that makes America the most competitive place in the world to create that job. And we have to have a flexible higher education system that allows a receptionist making $9 an hour to become a paralegal making $60,000 a year. I actually know someone that made that journey. But if you're working full-time, you can't just drop everything and go to school for 2 years. We need alternative ways to acquire this education that allows you to get credit for what you know, not how many hours you spent in a classroom. So you should learn online, on weekends, on your own pace.
Hey, the best system that allows you to get credit for what you know is called the free enterprise system, Mr. Rubio. And I'm not criticizing you, but you really walk up to the line about a system that helps the people, like a secretary, become a paralegal. And he's known somebody who's made that journey. The best thing that government can do is get the hell out of the way. The most dangerous expression in government language is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. And I swear to you, it almost sounded like Senator Rubio was saying that. And somehow this quote-unquote system that the Republicans can create is going to help people get a job or advance in a job. Look, get the government out of the way and let the desire of the people drive them to achieve. They have to have the basic desire. I don't care what the government desires of the people. It's what the people desire. And this system did not result in the dramatic gains in information technology, for example. I mean, a tax code, an education system, most of the federal government had little to do with creating the conditions for a Microsoft, an Apple, or really any successful startup to prosper, create, and grow. In fact, in most cases, these systems have prevented businesses from starting up, innovating, and growing. These systems favor those who want to maintain the status quo. So much of the influence of our government is these special interests that want to maintain a quote-unquote status quo. I mean, what are they? Who are they? And what effect do they have on you? What effect do they have on our economy, our government, and the candidates running for elected office? Again, I've got great respect for Senator Marco Rubio. I have little to no respect for Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. And I'm worried about Senator Rubio's lack of experience with free enterprise. And this is the problem with liberals. They want to get the government involved in everything. Government is not the solution. The individual is the solution, acting in a free enterprise system. But this Hillary Clinton has apparently sold this country out through their various foundations and relationships with other foreign governments, literally for 30 pieces of silver. My guest today is a documentary film maker. He's a writer, video blogger. His name's Mr. Bill Still. I want you to hang around because when I return, we're going to talk about his groundbreaking documentary. This tripping up over the words here. The Secret of Oz. If you haven't seen The Secret of Oz, this is one that you really need to see. It's one of the top documentary films in terms of internet views, and you can watch it for free on YouTube. And this is, for a lot of people, really the missing piece of the government puzzle, this documentary. And you can watch it right now today. Just go to The Secret of Oz on YouTube and then thank me later. You'll understand how readily available finance has grown this government to they're at a point where they literally are watching us. They're controlling us. They're regulating us. I don't know that you can call this freedom anymore or even liberty. This just doesn't have any of the basic tenets of what you would expect from a free country. No, this is bureaucratic despotism. I'm going to take a short break. Stay tuned. If you want to join the conversation, 904-222-TALK, 904-222-8255. You're listening to The Resistance with Forrest Wilson. I hope you'll call in, stay tuned, and, resist. I'll be right back.
Let's return to We the People with Forrest Wilson. Once again, here is Forrest.
In 1996, Bill Still produced the highly acclaimed documentary, The Money Masters. It predicted the economic events that are just starting to befall this country and have been befalling it since the collapse. Bill Still is a former newspaper editor and publisher. He has written for USA Today, the Saturday Evening Post, the Los Angeles Times Syndicate, Omni Magazine, and produced the syndicated radio program Health News. He's written 22 books and 2 documentary videos, including The Secret of Oz, literally one of my favorites. Bill Still, welcome back to The Resistance. How are you, sir?
Oh, pretty well. Thanks for having me on the show.
Every time you and I get together, I learn something, and really that documentary, The Secret of Oz, was earth-shattering for me. And I began to understand this term fractional reserve lending and its impact on the economy, the government, and literally the global monetary system. I want to read a quote for you. Give me control over a nation's currency, and I care not who makes its laws. You know who wrote that.
Well, yeah, supposedly Lord Rothschild wrote it, but it's actually an unsupported and probably fake quote.
But it's true, though. If you get control over a nation's currency, it really doesn't make any difference who makes the laws.
Right. That's why when we first sent the Money Masters to Professor Milton Friedman, who agreed to review it, he called me back the next after the weekend, and he had looked at it, and he said, "Boy, if you kill the Fed and do nothing about fractional reserve lending, you've done nothing." Because at that point, I was still kind of at the same place that the Ron Paul folks are at right now, that, the answer is to kill the Federal Reserve System. And, the Fed is a problem, but if you just killed the Fed and didn't do anything else, didn't fix fractional reserve lending, you wouldn't do anything. Because let's take a look at it. If you ended the Fed tomorrow or Monday morning, would the banks stop lending money that they don't really have? No. The Fed really has nothing to do with that other than so-called supposedly try to control it. You have to get at the root of the problem, and that is banks literally have the monopolistic right in this country and virtually every country on the planet of creating money out of nothing at this point. That's not the way it used to be, but that's the way it is today. They have the right to counterfeit American money, and that's what is the root of this problem.
In other words, if I've got a federal charter and I've got $1, I can literally loan 10 and collect interest on the 10, even though the 10 never existed. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, but it's even worse than that. We found out during the 2008 congressional investigation of the near banking collapse of 2007, 2008, that the banks were not adhering to the 10% reserve rule. The big banks, Citi, J.P. Morgan, were not leveraged 10-1. They were leveraged 52-1. Freddie and Fannie were leveraged 80-1. And the big trading houses, such as Goldman Sachs, were leveraged 333-1. And shortly thereafter, President Obama even came out and proposed that there be no reserve requirement whatsoever, that they could be leveraged infinity to 1. And, of course, that didn't go anywhere. But still, it goes to show just how nauseating this is. They have the right to counterfeit money, lend it to us at interest. Then our payments back to them are payments on money that they didn't actually have in the first place. But if we fail to repay their loans, then they have the right to repossess our collateral. So they get it coming and going.
It's. I think Henry Ford did make this quote: "If the American public understood what the Federal Reserve was doing and banks in general, there'd be a revolution before tomorrow morning."
Yeah, all those Ford quotes. Ford and Edison were buddies at the turn of the century and the turn between the 19th and 20th centuries, and they fully understood the system and spoke out against it.
Bill, I want to keep you over through the break. We got a lot to talk about. There's some countries that are moving to debt-free government-issued money, and hopefully we can help people understand how this has really contributed to the growth of government and where we are today. You're listening to The Resistance, Forrest Wilson. My guest, Bill Still. I hope you'll stay tuned. 904-222-TALK, 904-222-8255. We'll be right back.
Let's return to We the People with Forrest Wilson. Once again, here's Forrest.
And we're back with Bill Still, my guest today. Bill, you were talking earlier today about Iceland issuing government money, government-issued money, not it's debt-free government-issued money. Explain what you mean by that.
Well, government-issued money means that you aren't selling bonds into the marketplace to create your money supply, that the government just issues the money. It just makes common sense. In fact, it's what 99% of the people on the street, if you ask them today, believe is happening in the United States today, that the government just issues the money and without debt. But that's not what happens. The way all money comes into existence in the United States is through the sale of U.S. bonds on the open market. So it's a debt money system. And that's what the problem is. It's because, as the Bible says, the borrower shall be servant to the lender. And so consequently, the biggest banks are the biggest buyers of this treasury debt, of these bonds. And so consequently, the American government is literally capable of being held hostage by the people who buy those bonds, which are the biggest banks in the world. That's what the problem is. The solution is that the government just issues the money without incurring such debt. And this concept is rising across the world. Israel's talking about it. I was flown to Israel about a year and a half ago and met with the top economic experts in the Israeli Knesset. And they're now slowly, gradually moving towards a system. And this has not been approved, but this is the proposal that right now, 97% of Israeli money is created as an interest-bearing debt. Only 3% is actually created by the government. That 3% are basically the coins in your pocket. That still is created by the government. All the other currency and electronic money is issued as debt. So Israel wants to make it so that in the first year, then only 90% of the money would be issued by banks as debt, and 10% of the money would be issued by the government. Then the next year, if everything looked good, 80% only would be allowed to be issued by banks, 20% by government, and going at it in a gradual way. And then, eventually they might go to 100%, they might go to 40%, they might go to 70%. Who knows? We haven't been there in so long. This is all a big experiment, but taking it gradually is a good approach. The same thing is going on in Iceland. The leading economics expert in the country is a guy who was a former head of IBM in Iceland for many years. I knew him. I've been to Iceland many times talking on this topic. I knew him. His name is Frosti Sigurðsson. I knew him before he was a member of Parliament. Now he's in Parliament. The Prime Minister asked him to produce a report on monetary reform, which he has done. And he agrees completely with this debt-free, interest-free money, government-issued money system. This is the crucial sentence from his report. Crucially, the power to create money is kept separate from the power to decide how that new money is used, thereby ensuring that conflicts of interest do not lead to too much or too little money being created, or money being created for private rather than the public benefit. And that hits the nail on the head. Money should be issued in the public interest, where today it's issued as an interest-bearing debt only for the interest of the banks.
It's, I guess proof positive of this is if you take out a dollar bill and look at the top, it says Federal Reserve Note. It is a debt instrument. So what are some of the benefits of the government issuing money, spending it into the economy?
Well, for one thing, they don't have to incur the debt. They don't have to incur the interest. I mean, do you realize how much is being spent on interest on this national debt, a debt which is entirely unnecessary right now? The estimates vary widely, but most people agree that it's probably around $400 billion per year just spent on interest, a payment that is entirely unnecessary. But another equally important benefit, though much more hidden, is the control factor over the government that issuing this debt gives to the biggest banks. So that's it. Those are the two major factors.
This control, though, is kind of, you've got this this trade agreement, this TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, that apparently few have read. It is being done not in secret, but in top secret. Many of the people allowed to see this document that the president is pushing, along with John Boehner and other Republican members of Congress. Talk about that. Talk about how the TPP relates to this literally multinational corporation control, which many of them are banks, of the United States, its sovereignty, and really any country and their sovereignty.
Well, the key issue in keeping the world free is the independent nation state and national sovereignty for those states. Once national sovereignty is sufficiently breached, yes, you might have a system, a worldwide system, where war no longer exists, but you'll also have a worldwide system that can be described as nothing less than an ironclad dictatorship, from which real self-governance won't exist and from which humanity could never escape. So with all the drawbacks of nation states and national sovereignty, it is the thing that keeps the world free. And so I'm against all forms of consolidation of power at the international level. I'm against the EU. There's a big group in England that's against the EU. In fact, I just joined that group today. The TPP is on the Pacific side of this internationalism and basically gives corporations a form of sovereignty that exceeds even American sovereignty. In other words, international corporations, if they meet certain rules or of a certain size, no longer have to be bound by American law. There are many negative aspects to all this, but the problem is that even though my congressman and senator have both come out that they're going to vote for TPP, they have not read the bill yet. No one has read the bill, or very few people have read the bill. And if fast-track authority is passed to pass this bill, Congress will literally have only 15 days to read it. That it could come in at 10,000, 20,000 pages. No one in Congress will read the entire thing. It's going to be another Obamacare nightmare. And this is like standard operating procedure now in Washington.
Why do you think they're not reading this bill? And it is pretty evident because so many of them are talking about it, and when they get questions, they can't answer them. Why would they do that?
Because the tremendous financial incentives, this is my speculation, the tremendous financial incentives that are being promised these our congressmen and senators if they'll vote for this. There's nothing else, to my mind, because just fast-track authority itself is unconstitutional because it does not allow the Congress to filibuster against the bill. It does not allow open debate, which can only be closed by cloture. It limits debate. It limits congressional committee scrutiny and completely forbids what's the word I just used? I forgot already. It slipped my mind. But in any case, it is not a good thing. And for Congress even to come out in support of it before they actually read it is just ludicrous. What does this country come to?
Well, that's a good question. This is, I want to read you an excerpt from Senator Jeff Sessions, somebody who is against this fast track. And he wrote a letter on Friday, and it says, under fast track, Congress transfers its authority to the executive and agrees to give up several of its most basic powers. These concessions include the power to write legislation, the power to amend legislation, the power to fully consider legislation on the floor, the power to keep debate open until Senate cloture is invoked, and the constitutional requirement that treaties receive a 2/3 vote. He's saying that this TPP rises to the level of treaty.
Well, it is a trade treaty, and it has even more effective teeth in it than many treaties between governments. So it's just unbelievable that it's getting, and it's unbelievable that Republicans are even getting behind it. One would think that they would be more interested in national sovereignty than anyone else, but they're all lining up behind Speaker Boehner now. When I did my first story, or my second story about it about 2 weeks ago, they were over 100 votes short in the House, and now, as of last night, my understanding is that they're now within 10 votes of being able to pass this fast-track authority.
I don't understand why the Republicans are caving and doing things like this, subverting the Constitution, subverting the potential will of the people, because once Congress is subverted, that is the voice of the people. So I don't understand it either. And I don't understand John Boehner and some of the other Republicans, other than what you said. There must be some sort of financial incentive. How do they get a financial incentive? This can't be direct payments to them. It's got to come through some other means.
Well, we've witnessed the shenanigans that can go on with just the revelations about Hillary Clinton. Money going into her foundation, into the Clinton Foundation, and then massive payments being made at so-called speakers' fees. So there's plenty of ways to do it, and it just takes principled leaders, and they're under apparently incredible pressure at this point.
Now, there's something else. You and I talk in terms of secular ideas, but the reality is there seems to be something more going on, doesn't there? I mean, this transcends secularism. This has to do maybe with some level of spiritualism. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I'm a Christian myself. I don't hide that at all, and that so you have to be guided in some way by biblical principles, and that is, we're coming into an end time scenario where all governments are merged into one, and that's what you see happening right now. That's what this attack on nationalism is, and it's been, in many times, it's been put forward as a way to put an end to wars. But you're going to put an end to wars, but you're also going to put an end to freedom and self-determination. Humanity has struggled for 2,500 years to achieve democratic governance, and it's been under attack every step of the way, and this is yet the latest incarnation of that attack. So we really have to understand what the basics of the struggle are, and that's we have to preserve national sovereignty, or else the world cannot hope to achieve freedom.
This conversation really helps me understand why we have open borders. It's unbelievable that people in Congress and people in our government would be so feckless in terms of shutting down the border and stopping the invasion. By the way, Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution requires that the federal government put down invasions of the state. It doesn't say armed invasion. It doesn't say an invasion of locusts. It says invasion, and you have to assume that they mean people breaching our borders. Maybe this explains some of the reason why they will do nothing to shut down the borders.
Well, that's exactly right. And this president, as I'm sure we both agree, has been a disaster for the America that you and I grew up in. And if we treasure our freedom at all, we've got to try to bring someone in here who will stand firm for American nationalism, for American sovereignty.
I don't hear any of them really talking in terms of American sovereignty. They're, talking economy, talking the basic kitchen table items. You said something to me earlier that was rather alarming. You said that Israel is preparing for war with Iran.
Yeah, I just got some news from Israel that they've run a full week of their highest scale alerts, where literally every everything in the Israeli Air Force that would fly was put up into the air at the same time, to the point where it nearly shut down air traffic around the Middle Eastern area, even commercial air traffic, just because so many planes came up at the same time. No one knew exactly what was going on. Of course, the Israelis are not going to announce it, but they're preparing a drill to evacuate all 3 million Israelis from the north portion of the country because ISIS is prepared to take over Syria, and Iran is putting in a 2-division army to try to prevent this. And no matter which one wins out, that's a lot of troops, that's a lot of boots on the ground just over the mountain from Israel. And Israel fully expects, according to Israeli sources, to be at war with Iran within a year. And, it just so happened, I'm not a big believer in the blood moon, but the fourth blood moon does occur on September 28th.
Yeah, I was fortunate that I got to see the movie, The Four Blood Moons, and you're right. During these times, these blood moons, there's been some dramatic events throughout history, and we could see the development of a dramatic event here on September 28th. Bill Still, I want to thank you for coming on. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. Just throw your website out there, because you really do some interesting video blogs, and go ahead and give me your website.
Yeah, it's just www.billstill.com.
And again, I so appreciate it. Every time we interact, I learn something new. And my friend, I will be in touch with you. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. Bye.
You're listening to The Resistance, AM 600, FM 100.3. If you want to weigh in on any of these topics, 904-222-TALK, 904-222-8255. You got to check out Bill Still's website. He has some of the most insightful information and video blogging on that site. Do check out The Secret of Oz, one of my favorite videos and documentaries on the internet. Really helps you understand fractional reserve lending and why we are where we are. You're listening to The Resistance. Forrest Wilson. I'll be right back.
Let's return to We the People with Forrest Wilson. Once again, here's Forrest.
Okay, we're back. Our phone number, 904-222-8255. Our website, wethepeople1787.org or .com, doesn't matter. wethepeople1787.org or .com. Hey, if you find your healthcare plan canceled or your employer dropping your plan due to the expense, I've got good news. A biblical alternative. That's right. Medi-Share is administered by Christians, not bureaucrats, Jack. Medi-Share, a program of Christian Care Ministry, is a healthcare sharing program whose members share financial resources to pay each other's medical expense. Medi-Share isn't insurance. Resources are shared directly between members. I'm a member, and I just want to tell you about these folks simply because I am in opposition to the Affordable Health Care Act. I get nothing from promoting them other than the peace of mind of knowing that in some small way I'm resisting the growth of government. I'm resisting the feral government. I'm resisting Barack Hussein Obama. Go to mychristiancare.org to find out more about this fantastic program. It'll save you a tremendous amount of money. You will qualify as having health insurance, and you will be exempt from Obamacare, the taxes, and the fines. 800-772-5623, 800-772-5623. Tell them Forrest Wilson sent you. Here's a citizen who refuses to remain silent. This was published in the Weekly Standard several weeks back. I've been meaning to get it to you because I was just astounded. And the reason why is the age of this citizen. This is titled, "A Concerned 8-Year-Old Citizen Writes Brutal Letter to Michelle Obama," the First Lady that I don't want to see replaced by Bill Clinton. Anyways.
What part of democracy are they afraid of?
Yeah. Okay. What part of the republic are you afraid of, Mrs. Clinton? So this 8-year-old citizen sends in an email attachment a handwritten letter, and this is by a citizen by the name of Peter, and it's addressed to First Lady Michelle Obama. And it all started because he saw something about school lunches and how ketchup is bad for you, and that Michelle Obama wants to limit the amount of ketchup in school. So here goes. My name is Peter. I'm 8 years old. I love studying the history. I have enjoyed learning about the great choices the USA has made, and there was your husband's election. I thank you. Should you rethink your idea that takes us to one ketchup packet per meal? I feel that it is taking away our patriotism towards America. I also think you should stop doing nothing and go spend some troops to the Middle East. Go send some troops to the Middle East. This is handwritten. I also think your husband needs to work on his speeches. He also disappointed millions of Americans by not bombing Syria. Boy, did he. If you do not know, every day thousands of people's homes are destroyed by the ISIS in the Middle East. You should also get the UN to send troops to Ukraine. Also, may I ask you, is the White House comfortable? Of all things. Thank you for your time and consideration. Signed, a concerned 8-year-old citizen, Peter. So some are standing up, even 8 years old. Continue to resist. Continue to tune in. AM 600, FM 100.3. The Answer. You've listened to The Resistance. See you next week.
And before you leave, did the dog, the bounty hunter, actually say Mrs. Clinton was good looking?
I think he did. It's disgusting. I'll never watch him again.
All the beer in the U.S. would make her that good looking. See you later, Wilson.
Cheers.